You're listening to In Bed with Science, a sex podcast. I'm Lee Noren, a sex therapist with a Master of Science in Sexology and over 12 years of coaching, counseling, and therapy experience. Today, I'm taking a break from the usual and I'm sharing a bit of a personal update. But first, do you have a sex or relationship question you want to ask, but you're not quite sure where to turn? Now's your chance. I'm looking for thoughtful, personal questions about things like intimacy, mismatched libidos, emotional disconnect, and struggles with sexual pleasure and desire. Specifically, those messy, non-Hollywood experiences that we all have but rarely talk about. And I'll be answering them in upcoming episodes of the podcast with both compassion and scientific insight. Submit your story or question anonymously, or with your name if you'd like, and it might be featured in a future episode. Okay, so today's episode is a little different, and I wanted to pop in to share a quick update. So basically, life has been a lot lately, and if I'm being completely honest, it's not just this year. I feel like it's been one long whirlwind for me, just like so many people, I think, from 2020-ish, when the pandemic happened. I did have my son at the end of 2019, and then just over a year ago now, I have my daughter as well. And for anyone who has kids and works, or, basically just has kids, it is a lot. It is a lot. And I started this work. I started kind of my online center because it was my dream. Right? I had one of those actual lightning bolt moments when I was about 17 and I realized that sexology was an actual career path. So all of a sudden, it all made sense. I'd been super interested in sex as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers are. And when I realized that sexology was a legitimate field, I kind of went, oh, okay, so I'm not just sort of immature. This is a legitimate interest. And I've always really wanted to help people. I think that's been very clear ever since I was really young. I always had kind of friends and family and acquaintances turn to me with lots of different issues. And when I realized that sexology was a field that you could work in, I realized that I wanted to combine the two, right? And I wanted to not just talk about sex and learn about sexuality because it's really interesting, but because I wanted to help people feel better when it came to sex, feel better about themselves, feel better about their relationships, reduce that shame and guilt and anxiety that so many people carry around sex. And I still feel that way. I still every day love going to work. And getting to work with people, especially, the clients that I help one-to-one, doing that is such a huge privilege because sex and sexuality are so private, right? So getting to do that is something I don't take lightly. But because I take it so seriously and because I care so much about doing good work and putting out good pieces of content into the world, I've realized that something has to give a little. So this podcast isn't going anywhere, but for a little while, I'm going to be releasing podcast episodes about once a month instead of every other week. And I want to be really clear, this isn't because I don't love the podcast. I genuinely love the podcast too, but it does take a lot, right? It's not just finding the research that's actually good and relevant, but it's also digging into the nuances of it. It's making it useful. It's pulling from my clinical experience and sometimes creating exercises or extra resources alongside the episodes. And then it's also interviewing the researchers on their papers, right? So it really is this full-on process. And right now, with, this season of life with a baby just turned toddler and a 6-year-old starting school, I just don't have that space for it. And I know myself. So I've actually been burnt out before, and not just in the kind of, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, but that full on, I can't actually form sentences well enough to write an email. My brain isn't working kind of burnout. if it sounds dramatic, it's because it was. It's made me hyper aware of those signs and kind of being able to spot those signs within myself earlier. Now, also to be really clear, I'm not there right now, but I also know that if I don't listen to those signs, that's where I'll end up. So this is me in a very public way, pulling the brakes before my body does it for me. I don't usually share stuff like this, but I do think that it's important to. And, I talk mainly about sex and intimacy and desire and relationships, but underneath all of that, right? Whether I'm working one-to-one with a client or whether it's a workshop or a course I'm offering, really what I'm always talking about is being a human being. And sexuality is one facet of a whole person. And it's also affected by our whole person. And so I focus on things that are sexual with clients and in my work in general, but I also focus on those like deeply unsexy, completely unsexual things that are important because all of you matters, really, whether your issue is sexual or not. And so I'm taking a leaf out of my own book and I'm looking at my whole self and I'm looking at what my whole self needs for me to show up and be the therapist and the coach that I want to be, for me to show up and be the partner and the mom that I want to be, and the friend and the sister and the daughter, and all of those many, many roles that we all carry in life. I think sometimes we forget that therapists and coaches and, mental health professionals just in general are human too. And we're not immune to this stuff. We're not immune to life being really difficult, right? There's nothing special with us in that way. So if you're in a season of life where you also feel stretched and where you're maybe running on fumes, or you've maybe noticed that you're not really noticing your needs anymore, like you never really feel like you actually need anything, this is your reminder. Now, not everyone has the privilege to change how they work at all, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing you can do. So what it might mean for you could be starting to shift how you talk to yourself, right? We know that our thoughts have a huge impact on our behaviors, which affects the outcomes in our life, and how we experience life. It might be having the conversation you've been avoiding, right? So actually bringing up with your partner that, hey, I've been thinking a lot about our sex life and the fact that, we don't have sex that often. And I was wondering if we could talk about it and talk about how we feel about it. It could be deciding to ask for help instead of trying to figure it all out on your own. A lot of us live in a very individualistic society where we kind of hold up that value of doing things on our own and getting by without help and being so independent. But human beings haven't evolved to be independent. We've evolved to be dependent, to work together, to live in community. It's only until recently in our sort of human lifespan that we've lived the way that we live. And I think a lot of us could probably agree that it's not great. A lot of us feel lonely and depressed and things are hard, right? Life can be hard. So getting help if you need it, whether it's for your sex life or your relationship or just your general well-being, if you can and if you can afford it and if you're ready for it, that might be the step you need to take now, right? Whatever it looks like, I think the main point here is you deserve to take care of yourself. And that's not being selfish and that's not being weak. That's how we last as human beings. And that's how we lead a life that is worth living. Your life is worth living, not just persisting, not just getting by. So moving forward, the podcast will be monthly, but my goal is still the same. Bar this episode that's an outlier, I want to make it so that you can reap the benefits of sexual science. I want to make science useful for you. I want to use lived experience in my profession and experiences that I've been privy to through my clients. And I want to make each piece of content worth your time. I don't want to churn out episodes just for the sake of it. God knows there's enough content out there like that, especially now with, a lot of people only using AI to create pieces of content and kind of churn out more and more and more. I really want my episodes to help. So that's my quick update. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, and for letting me be a little human today and not just my regular therapist self. And if this resonated, feel free to let me know. I love hearing from you. Sometimes putting out podcast episodes is kind of like throwing something out there and you don't really know how it lands. So it would be lovely to hear how this episode lands. And I will see you soon with another fascinating episode on sex and relationships and all of the good science about it. Now, if you're looking to get your desire back without pressure and stress and have more and better sex, head to leaneoran.com or click on the link in the show notes to learn more about my one-to-one online program, Redesire. Thanks for listening.